My golden child brother couldn't stand that I was doing better in life, so he vandalized my car, knowing Dad, who's a cop, would protect him if I reported it. But I did something worse. I posted a video of his dirty deed on social media, and now he's on the verge of losing everything. I, 30, female, have a younger brother, Jackson, 26, male, and we do not get along, never have, never will. I guess that's why he went out of his way to try and cause trouble for me, but this time, unfortunately, it backfired on him. Part of the credit for that would go to my parents, who always treated him differently. As a young kid, it was very confusing for me because as long as it was just me, my parents doted on me. But as soon as my brother was born, I was pushed to the sidelines and there was nothing that I could do to bring them back to me, and believe me, I tried really hard to win them over but never had any luck after Jackson was born. I took part in sports, stayed ahead academically, danced and sang and acted in school plays, but nothing impressed my parents enough to pay attention to me. It was all about Jackson, which was weird because he didn't seem to be exceptionally talented at anything to me, had he been a child prodigy. I might have even forgiven my parents for the kind of treatment I received, but he was a bratty, spoiled kid who got so used to the attention that he just couldn't stand it when anyone else was receiving it. Every time I came home with good news from school, he would find some way to make the day about him and my parents, let him get away with it as well. It was like they were blind when it came to him, and they proved me right on my 18th birthday. When I turned 18, my parents threw me a party, but in the middle of it we received word from the cops that my brother had apparently decided to get caught while drinking with a couple of his friends. Here's the deal. All of his other friends had made a run for it, but he was the only one who had been caught, and I knew that it was on purpose. He wanted to get caught so that it would become all about him and my parents would be concerned. The worst part is that he didn't even get into trouble for it. The cops just let him off with a warning because my dad is on the force, and once my parents had brought him back home they just reprimanded him for a bit. But they didn't even punish him by grounding him or whatever, so he totally got away with ruining my party, and that wasn't even the last time that something like this happened. At 21, when I got my first job, he decided to come home with his girlfriend and told our parents that he was engaged to her. So instead of celebrating my job, we started to celebrate his engagement, and once again the spotlight was stolen from me. And I think for me personally, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I got into a huge fight with my brother and my parents that day, and instead of trying to understand me, they told me that I was being oversensitive and dramatic, and after that I never spoke to them again. My parents tried to reach out to me several times afterward, but it has been 9 years and I still haven't spoken to them because I know that they still love my brother a lot more than they love me. Jackson has never tried to reach out to me, and from what I know he broke off the engagement with that girl a couple of weeks after I cut them out of my life. So all that really was just to hog the limelight. So I didn't get any attention. Anyway, I'm glad that he did not try and reach out because he's a horrible human being and I wouldn't want anything to do with him. For 9 years we haven't spoken, but I guess he knows what I've been up to. We have all seen each other at family events and stuff. I think my family knows I'm doing well for myself. I drive a pretty nice car and always try to dress my best. Since I don't have any family of my own and I don't plan on having one anytime soon either, all my money is spent on myself. I can afford this because I'm running my own company, and it's pretty thrilling since that's what I always wanted to do. 2 years ago, when my business started taking off, I decided to buy a new house and move out of the apartment that I had been living in ever since I got my first job. I had told all my relatives not to give out my address to my family, especially not to my brother, but somehow he was able to find out about it, and 6 days ago he showed up in the evening and decided to vandalize my car. I had just come back home from work and I was about to leave for a party again, so I hadn't bothered to park my car in the garage and it was still out in the driveway. When I came back outside to drive to the party, I saw that somebody had spray painted my car with blood red paint, and they had said some pretty mean stuff. The sides of the car had been spray painted with a bunch of cuss words, but that did not bother me as much as what had been spray painted on the windshield. You don't deserve any of this. I was shocked for a few minutes, trying to just process what I was seeing, and I was about to call the cops when I realized that if this was the handiwork of my brother, then there was simply no point in doing so, because if I got the cops to report my brother, and my dad would just squash the entire case and he would be let off with just a warning again. After I had processed what I had seen, I realized that the handwriting belonged to my brother, and just to be sure I checked security footage as well. He had been wearing a hoodie, but I could just tell that it was him since he hadn't been careful enough, and I had caught a bit of his face on the cameras. When I realized that it was him, I knew that there was no point in calling the cops because my dad would deal with it and he would get away with everything. I'm speaking from experience, not just from my 18th birthday but also because of all the gossip that I've heard about my brother from a couple of relatives. Apparently, taking advantage of my dad's connections has become a pretty common thing for him. To be honest, I have a fair idea of why Jackson did this since he hasn't been doing that well in life. I have heard from a couple of people that he had tried to start a business a few years back, but that had failed miserably and he had to get help from our parents to clear all his debts. Even the jobs that he had had before, they refused to take him back. With nothing else to do, he kind of gave up on everything and just started drinking and doing drugs. And my dad knows about it. He knows about all my brother's shady dealings and is constantly trying to help him cover up and bail him out anytime he gets into trouble. I guess recently, Jackson has been finding it very difficult to deal with the fact that I am successful, especially because I made it to the cover of a local magazine and that had become the talk of the town among the family a few days back. And he's not really dealing well with it emotionally since he hasn't really grown up from when we were kids, and also because he doesn't really have anything going on for himself. And partying every weekend isn't really something worth bragging about anymore. And maybe that's why he felt like he had to go out of his way to vandalize my car and let me know that I don't deserve any of this even though I do. It might sound mean what I'm about to say, but he also deserves what he's going through right now. He was never very hardworking or to anything. He just expected things to work out for him, and my parents always made it happen, so it isn't surprising that he's turned out like this. So when I saw that footage, I knew that there was no point in taking it to the cops because my dad would definitely not allow Jackson to get in any sort of trouble. But I was not about to let him get away with it since I had never even spoke to them for 9 years, but he has still decided to try and get on my nerves. After some brainstorming, I came up with a brilliant idea of posting the video on social media and leaving everyone else to deal with him. I took a bunch of photos of whatever was written on my car and posted it along with a video claiming that it was my brother who had done it, and I was sure of it. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to the cops with this information because my dad, who had spent a lifetime in the force, was going to make sure that he covered all of this up just so his darling baby did not get into trouble. Within a couple of hours the comments started pouring in, and I had made sure to unblock my family just so they would be able to see this post. When Jackson inevitably texted me to take that post down, I just told him that I wasn't going to do that, and he couldn't even make me because if he took this up legally he would have to prove that it was actually not him in the video, and that would require this situation to go to court, and it definitely is him in the video. So we were at a stalemate, but to be honest he had more to lose than I did because even though he had vandalized my car and I would have to pay for it to get repainted, it really wasn't a big deal for me because I was earning enough to be able to afford it. On the other hand, if he decided to take this situation up legally in order to get me to take my post down, then he would have to try and prove that it was not him, and he had more because it was actually proven that it was definitely him in the video. He would be screwed, and it wasn't just about him, even my father and whoever had been helping him out, they would also get into trouble. I'm pretty sure that he hadn't seen this coming. He had probably just expected me to go to the cops and have them deal with it, and then he would have just spoken to our dad and gotten away with all of this scot-free. Unfortunately, I know my family and he picked a fight with the wrong person this time, so after I sent that text to him he did not even reply for a couple of days because he did not have anything to say. The post stayed up and pretty much everyone that we know, my friends, our family members and even our family friends had seen that post. Finally, 2 days ago, he reached out to me once again and said that he was ready to cough up the money required for the paint job, but he just wanted me to take that post down. But for me it was obviously not about the money, so I told him that I didn't care about the money. I wanted him to acknowledge what he had done and post a public apology. Only then would I consider taking that post down. At that point, he started pleading with me and said that he was ready to apologize in person or however else I wanted, but just not publicly because that would involve having to accept the fact that he had done something like this and it would put everything at risk for him, claiming that he would lose all his clients. I don't know what client he's talking about because I don't think he has a business right now, but I don't care either way. So far he had just been denying all of it whenever anyone was approaching him to ask about it, but accepting it was just going to make him look bad. But I didn't really care. I told him that this was what I wanted and he could either do it or that post would stay up. It was as simple as that for me. And he sent me a couple more messages after I told him that I was not ready to negotiate, trying to reason with me, but I didn't even bother to reply. A few hours after that my father called me up and told me that the post that I had made was not just reflecting badly on my brother but also on him, and he had dedicated his life to his career, so he couldn't allow something like this to derail it. He requested me to take that post down, and yet again I had to disappoint another person by declining because if he had just not risked anything at all to protect my brother, maybe I wouldn't have anything to say against him in my post in the first place. Now his reputation was at stake, but instead of trying to convince Jackson to apologize to me publicly, my parents started yelling at me on the phone. They said that I was being ridiculous and that my success had gone to my head since I thought that I could just do whatever I wanted and get away with it. I was about to hang up on them as soon as they started yelling at me, but then my mother started crying and said that she had never expected me to behave like this. She acknowledged the fact that Jackson and I had been treated differently as kids, but she and my father had tried to contact me several times throughout the past 9 years and yet I had never responded, so it wasn't fair for me to act like they were the villains here even though they had tried to make amends with me a lot of times. Even now, I had no idea that they had apparently cut ties with Jackson soon after I made that post and he told them the truth, that it was indeed him. The only reason they were even speaking with him right now was because they had to get me to take that post down. But apart from that, they had no contact. They told me that they really had changed these people, but now by not taking that post down I was ruining my dad's reputation as well without even giving him a chance to prove that he had changed. And now I'm kind of confused because I really don't want to take that post down. At the same time, I don't understand what to do with the situation regarding my parents. So AITA for not wanting to take down a Facebook post against my brother even though it's ruining my dad's reputation? Update 1. Hello? So a couple of things before I move on to the update. The first being that my dad has retired from the force. He just crossed 55 recently and announced his retirement around the same time, even though it's not exactly mandatory for him right now. But he's been having a lot of problems with his heart, so he decided to take an early retirement. This happened just a couple of months ago and I found out about it from other family members, but he still has connections with his colleagues on the force. And I know for a fact that if he wanted to, he definitely would have been able to bail my brother out. Besides, I think posting it on Facebook did a lot more damage to my brother's reputation, and that's exactly what I had wanted, so I don't really regret not calling the cops on him. I think I did the right thing, and coming to Jackson and what kind of drugs he was taking, I'm not really sure about that. All I know is that none of what he was doing was legal. Not just drugs, but he's also involved in a lot of other shady things. Because I know for a fact that he hasn't worked since his business flopped a couple of years back, and yet he has still managed to be able to pay rent and live in an apartment of his own. Of course, it's very likely that my parents have been supporting him financially, but even then I'm sure that they haven't been giving him money to party, and his Instagram feed is just full of pictures him living it up with his friends. I don't know exactly what he's involved in, but know that it can't be anything good, because if he has been able to raise money for himself without working hard, I'm pretty sure he's doing something illegal and dishonest, and my dad has been helping him cover it up, so he's not really the honest and upright cop that he has been pretending to be for everyone else, and that's why I don't see any reason for me to take that post down and protect his reputation. They did have a valid point that they had tried to contact me several times in the past couple of years, but the reason that I had never accepted their attempts to contact me was because I had always known that for them my brother was more of a priority than me. And even in this current situation, it was the truth. They claimed that they had cut him off but still spoke to him so they could get me to take the post down. So they didn't really cut him off, and what they said to me was pointless. I was a bit confused at the time because I was feeling a lot of mixed emotions, but after reading the comments on my post I realized I didn't really have to take that post down. My family deserves every bit of the hate that they are getting right now. They have brought it onto themselves, and I'm not the bad guy in this situation in the slightest. So it's been 9 days now and the post is still up. I got my car repainted already. I didn't think there was any point in waiting for my parents or my brother to cough up the money that they owed me, and besides, it was not about money for me in the first place. I think I have made that very clear, but in spite of that, my brother has not given up. Jackson keeps texting me again and again saying that he really is sorry and that he's ready to send me whatever amount I ask for, which is just another indicator that he's definitely involved in something shady, because otherwise where is he getting that money from? Since my parents just told me that they have cut him off, I'm pretty sure they're not giving him the money. Anyway, he keeps texting me and I just have to keep ignoring it because all I want is an apology, and a public one at that. And unless and until I get one, that post is staying up. At this point, even if I do take it down, it's going to be pretty pointless because everyone has seen it. The entire family has ostracized Jackson and my parents. Literally not one person wants to speak to them anymore. As for whoever went to school with us, most of them have reached out to tell me that they are not surprised that Jackson turned out like this. He had always been a bit of a brat and thought that he could always get away with everything, and he could. That was true, but not this time. Unfortunately for him, the only people who have not spoken to me after that last phone call are my parents, and I genuinely have no idea what they have been up to. Truth be told, I really don't understand why it's so difficult for my family to just acknowledge and accept their mistakes and apologize for them to me. It's a very simple and reasonable condition in my opinion, and yet they are acting as if I've asked for the world. It's really sad, but I'm not surprised that they are acting like this. They've always been this way, and I, for one, am glad that I got them 9 years back, because they don't deserve to be a part of my life in the first place. My golden child brother couldn't stand that I was doing better in life, so he vandalized my car, knowing Dad, who's a cop, would protect him if I reported it. But I did something worse. I posted a video of his dirty deed on social media, and now he's on the verge of losing everything. Update 2. So my parents decided to pay me a visit today, but it was not just them who showed up. Their family lawyer came along with them. My mom's older brother, my uncle, is a pretty great attorney, but I'm not sure why exactly he decided to come along with my parents to visit and intimidate me. It was the weekend, so I was at home in the morning when they came by, and then I saw them standing outside. I decided to invite them in because I was really curious about what they had to say. As soon as they were inside, my parents told me that they were there to talk about the post and said that they would be forced to file a defamation lawsuit against me if I did not take it down. I wish I could say that I felt threatened or intimidated in the slightest, but I was just amused that they thought that. Anyway, when they told me that they would be filing a lawsuit for defamation against me, my uncle decided to show me the paperwork for it, which had already been prepared by him. You know, just show me that they were serious about this and not just bluffing to scare me. Unfortunately, even the paperwork and the presence of a lawyer didn't scare me. I just told my parents that they were free to do whatever they wanted. In fact, I didn't even understand why they felt obliged to come to my home and give me a warning before they went through with the lawsuit. They had no need to do that, and after saying that, I told them that since they had made up their mind, they were free to leave, because I had also made up my mind and I was not going to go back on my word. So I was definitely not taking that post down until I had received a public apology from Jackson, but they refused to get up. They remained seated, and my dad tried to drive home the point that they were trying to make, that they were giving me a chance to avoid a lawsuit and a lot of trouble by just taking that stupid post down, and I needed to take it seriously instead of laughing it off. When I stayed silent and did not say anything, my dad decided to slam his fist against my coffee table, and that's what really pissed me off because it's very expensive, and I did not want him to cause any damage to it. His son had already damaged my car and I had to pay for it. I was not going to allow another one of those incidents to take place, so I told him to get out of my house because it was very obvious that neither he nor his son were capable of having a civilized conversation and acting like decent human beings, and I had absolutely no interest in interacting with them. My uncle said nothing but pulled my dad back, and my mother tried to salvage the situation by trying to reason with me. She was trying to bargain with me and kept saying that we could save a lot of time by just forgetting about that, and that could only happen if I deleted it. I did not even need to forgive them or whatever, but I had had enough. I just told him that I did not want to negotiate with them, and I honestly did not believe that they had the guts to go through with the lawsuit because that would create more trouble for them than it would for me. And most importantly, the thing about defamation lawsuits is that the entire basis of the lawsuit is that it's only valid if the other person is lying. Everyone knew that I wasn't lying, so filing a lawsuit against me would only bring out their truth, and I was all for it. Then my dad started screaming and cursing at me and I lost my temper. So I reciprocated by doing the same thing. Naturally, it turned into a shouting match soon enough, and my dad got to working up that he started punching the wall and was able to make a hole in it. My uncle had tried to stop him from doing it, but there was no point. He had been trained as a cop, and it was actually pretty scary to watch him punch a hole in my wall, but after he was done, what he did was what pissed me off even more. He took out a wad of cash from his wallet, threw it onto my coffee table, and then walked out after saying that I could contact him if I needed more. It was incredibly disturbing and disrespectful to me, and it was then I decided that I was going to have to pursue this legally. It had become very obvious to me that both my dad and Jackson are unhinged, and I don't want them around me at any point now. Initially, it had just been funny to mess with them, but clearly, there's something very wrong with both of them because I can't imagine normal people behaving like this. So I had a talk with my lawyer and told him everything that had happened right from the beginning. Of course, he already knew about the incident with my car since I had posted about it online, and now we are thinking about getting a restraining order against my family. I definitely qualify for it, especially after what happened today. A lawsuit will also be particularly helpful in bringing out the truth about my family, and I think that's really necessary at this point. People should know what kind of scum I'm dealing with because they really are the worst. So I'm actually looking forward to going against them right now. My golden child brother couldn't stand that I was doing better in life, so he vandalized my car, knowing Dad, who's a cop, would protect him if I reported it. But I did something worse. I posted a video of his dirty deed on social media, and now he's on the verge of losing everything. Update 3. Hey. So in my last update, I said I was going to file a lawsuit and a restraining order against my family, and I finally did that last week. The legal proceedings have started, and I only recently discovered from a couple of old school friends that Jackson had apparently become a full-fledged drug dealer. And it wasn't even like he was selling weed to college kids. He was dealing with hard drugs and had managed to build an elite clientele for himself like spoiled rich trust fund brats or upper management folks from the corporate world. You know exactly the kind of people I'm talking about, and I'm actually surprised that he was able to do this, but I guess it's a good thing that he's finally found his niche. I guess that's why he was actually jealous of me, because obviously I'm doing far better than him in life right now because I'm a successful entrepreneur and he's a drug dealer. So even though he parties every weekend, it's nothing compared to the life I have, and nobody is really proud of him. It's going to be hard to prove that he is a dealer, but I'm sure that a bit of fair investigation will reveal everything in due course. Right now it's just based on rumors, but I have my faith in the judicial system. And, anyway, at least I received an explanation as to how he was able to maintain the kind of lifestyle that he had without any apparent source of income. So that's what's going on with my brother, and I don't think that my parents had cut him off at any point because the last time that I saw them after our court hearing, they seemed to be pretty chummy. I don't think they would have been able to patch things up so quickly, especially if my dad had been telling me the truth about cutting him out of his life. Honestly, I'm just glad that I did not give my parents a chance and I went with my gut feeling. They are truly terrible people, and I'm just hoping that when the verdict finally comes through, it's against them. So far, it seems like it's going to be, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. My lawyer and I are going to leave no stone unturned to make sure that they get what they deserve. I have the entire family on my side, and I also have a lot of friends who are willing to testify if it comes down to it. Even my neighbors who had heard the wall getting punched repeatedly on the day that my father has visited are willing to testify against him. So at least I'm going to be able to get a restraining order against them for sure, and that's still good enough for me. About the rest of it, I'll deal with it as it happens. But for now, I'm just really happy that I'm getting the kind of closure that I needed. I hadn't even realized how much pent-up anger and frustration I had within me because of my family until recently, and I don't know if this is the most productive way to deal with it or not, but at least I am dealing with it and confronting my feelings, so I'm pretty proud of myself and I know that this is going to work out. Stay tuned for more stories from Argo relationships.